friends, and welcome to SermonLink. My name is Pastor Kate Broadbeck, and I'm so glad you're joining me for this few moments. So I'm the preacher for this Sunday, and I will be using the text from the Gospel of Mark, and going to be reading right from the very first chapter and verses 9 through 13. Very short, I know. So let's get to it. Let's read the verses and then see what they have to offer to us. So it goes like that. In those days, Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan River. And just as he was coming up out of the water, he saw the heavens torn apart and the Spirit descending like a dove on him. And a voice came from heaven, "You are my Son, the Beloved. With you I am well pleased." And the Spirit immediately drove him out into the wilderness. He was in the wilderness 40 days, tempted by Satan, and he was with the wild beasts, and the angels waited on him. So this is our text for today and this week, and it's very appropriate, thinking about Jesus first being baptized, named by God as God's Son and God's Beloved, affirming his identity in God. And then he is driven by the Spirit, or taken by the Spirit into the wilderness, where he spends 40 days and 40 nights. And how appropriate it is as we begin our journey of Lent, this spiritual season that lasts for 40 days. And it takes root from that place of 40 days when Jesus was in the wilderness, and then other places in the Hebrew Bible, in the Old Testament, where many of our fathers and mothers in faith were in the wilderness, and some really important event that took shape or took place for them. You know, I'm thinking about Moses that leading the Israelites into the wilderness and the desert. That was, of course, was not 40 days, it was 40 years, but that was very significant of shaping and forming who they are. And if you're thinking about that that image of wilderness, right, it's thirsty, there's no water, there's probably not much food. There are some wild animals that you see, but it seems like Jesus is getting along with the wild animals. And then we think, of course, about this ultimate dependence on God, that for food, for water. And so I think Lent then presents us with this opportunity to enter into these 40 days where we can experience again, and very intentionally, this dependence on God. And you know how we think about things that usually people take on or give up, and intentionality there is to take on something that will create this space, intentional space, interacting with God, right? Or take, for example, or give something up, right? That again creates that dependency on God. And I'm thinking about, you know, sometimes we will get anxious and we will grab for our phone, right, to check our social media and emails and other things. And like I do that a lot. When I get a little bit anxious or antsy, or there are some other compulsive behaviors that we do, instead of going to God, instead going to that source of peace and wisdom and love and joy for us, we kind of tend to grab and gravitate to the things and people and things that are far and technology, right, that perhaps at that moment would not fulfill the desires of our hearts. And so we begin this Lenten journey with this passage with Jesus being driven. The amazing thing is that he's being driven, right? Because intentionally, we would never want to go into the season of our lives, right, when we intentionally go and we feel hunger for God, or we feel thirsty, and it's really hard. But again, Lent presents us with this opportunity of intentionality, of spending time with God, be intentional about our relationship with God, and how and what role God plays in our lives. And what's important, I think, what I love, because why I included that verse 9 and 10 where Jesus is getting baptized. So Jesus goes into the wilderness with already his identity named. He is the beloved. He is the Son of God. And so he knows who he is. And so then he's taken into this tough place of temptation, where then he can look back and say, well, I am beloved of God. And so, friends, now again, when we begin the season of Lent, with intentionality, kind of the season of wilderness of our souls, we begin affirming our identity as God's beloved. And so when those really tough moments come to us, when pain and disappointment comes, we can rest in this assurance that we are beloved of God. And so from then that will flow, everything will flow. So these are just a few of my thoughts for you for this beautiful snowy day in central Ohio. And of course, as I'm thinking about desert and kind of just like different weather patterns, I am very aware of what's happening in Texas. I'm sure you are too. And so we're extending all our prayers to those who are without water and power, and they're cold and they're running out of gas and supplies, and those stories are just horrible. And so we're extending our prayers and healing and hope to those in Texas. And so friends, I hope you will join my prayers, and I hope you will have beautiful weekend, and will begin your journey of Lent intentionally, knowing and affirming our identity as God's beloved. So thank you, friends. Blessings to you. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.